Well, we're here today with my good friend and eDiscovery legal technology expert and professional, David Carns. Happy to have you here today.
Thanks, Bryant.
So you've been in legal technology for a while, and you have a really, I think, fascinating background in how you got into it. And then also, I always like your perspective on new technology and where the industry's going. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your career and how you got into legal technology and what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So I took an odd path, and I think that pretty much demarks everyone's path into legal technology. I'm not sure anybody comes at it directly.
Sure.
But I was a philosophy major undergrad, and I was a music minor, so completely unemployable, which meant I had to do something else.
Sure.
And I went to law school, and I was working at a firm, and as a law clerk, and I'm a summer associate initially, and just doing kind of basic office tasks. And I became close friends with the IT consultant. And this was in the late 90s, so this is the dot-com bubble and all the stuff that's going on, and I fell in love with technology. And I actually started a computer consulting company that specialized in law firms during law school. Kind of a foolhardy errand, but it worked out pretty well. And I've either been working as a consultant or working inside of law firms ever since. Originally in just general technology, then for many years in eDiscovery in particular, and now I'm back as a generalist.
Okay. Do you prefer being a generalist or eDiscovery, or are there pros and cons?
I think in any of it, it's really fun to deep dive into stuff, right? So eDiscovery gives you that skill, but at the same time, no matter what you're doing, you're pulling in a lot of different knowledge into the role. So eDiscovery, right? I mean, there's always you need to know nuances of how OCR works versus text extraction versus this type of data processing, this forensic tool. And if you actually understand it, it's so much better.
Right.
Because a lot of people like to wax poetic, but they don't even know what they're talking about. So I think you need to be a really strong generalist, and then applying it to a specific niche, I think is pretty interesting.
Well, that's kind of where we find ourselves right today is like, I think we're at a really different moment when it comes to technology in the legal field, where legal is always adopting technology from other industries, right? Reluctantly, some would say, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, the AI moment of our entire culture is being forced upon legal in a way that, it's trying to respond to.
Right.
What's your sense of that?
I think in a lot of ways, legal is the perfect fit for AI. Obviously, AI excels specifically now with text.
Right.
You give it a rich amount of text, and it knows how to respond to things. So, the legal industry is all driven off of text. I think it's a good marriage from that perspective. I think the understanding how to find the right workflows and apply them to legal is a little tricky. I think the moniker of being Luddites is well earned by many attorneys, and it's not just the older ones.
Sure.
I mean, even when I was in law school in the late 90s, many of my cohort just declared themselves as not being tech savvy, and this was in the dot-com bubble. You'd think people would have been wanting to show their interest. And as the decades have moved on, I say that still holds true. And it's funny about the industry. But applying AI to this industry, I think is a really strong fit. And now that we're starting to tease out what all those workflows are, I think, a lot of people, including in-house counsel corporations, are saying like, wait a second, I now find this useful. I can now see how I want my outside counsel to be using this technology. And here comes a virtuous cycle of, improving the business of law and also improving the outcome of law itself.
That's interesting you bring that up. About 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation in DC where we had about 12 corporations and law firms, and one of our current clients told us and told everyone who was there that they now, part of their RFP process is asking, how are you using AI in your work for their outside counsel? Are you seeing that when you see RFPs?
100%. And
Okay.
But it's funny because initially, actually a lot of outside counsel guidelines from those exact same corporations will specifically say you may not use generative AI on our work product, which is funny because then they're in turn asking, so how are you going to use generative AI to improve the way you support us? And it's actually, while it feels like a dichotomy, it's completely fair on their part because they're like, look, we didn't come out of the gates saying slow down everybody. let's try to understand this moment before we just, forge ahead. But now that they're like, no, this is going to improve outcomes for us, the corporation, now they want to hear from their outside counsel. So how are you going to use this? Now, it has to be done effectively, it has to be done securely, and all those sorts of things.
Right.
But how are you going to use it to benefit me? And if it benefits me, then I'm going to keep working more with you, which obviously now is the virtuous cycle all over again. So, we are getting a lot of questions from in-house counsel about, hey, how are you going to use the technology to benefit us, the client? And I think they're really interested in that conversation.
Right. Yeah, that when we talk to clients about AI, we always stress the point where, there's a couple ways, right, and benefits to it. It's not just cost savings, but it's time savings, it's ability to pivot. I'm specifically talking about document review, right? And
Yep.
it provides benefits that it isn't an apples to oranges comparison of contract review versus AI review. You're getting a lot more knowledge and substance out of the AI, but you can still use classic review to validate it and check it and make sure that you're comfortable using it. From a standpoint of the ILTA, is there something you're looking forward to seeing here, at the show?
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, it's like all AI. It's
for
funny.
sure.
There are
For
so
sure.
many sessions just all AI, which is ironic to a certain degree because ILTA also has a different convention called ILTA Evolve, and that's in the spring. I've been a part of in the past, and that is specifically focused on AI.
Right.
So you would have thought we would have exhausted all of the possible sessions. No,
And you
not
spoke
even
it. You
close.
spoke at that, right?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah. And no, but there's a lot of great sessions on AI. In fact, one was called boring uses of AI that you can use to kind of benefit your firm, and I thought it was a great title. Apparently, everyone thought so too. It was standing room only.
Right.
In fact,
Okay.
they finally had to shut the doors and say, sorry, no more people can come in
Okay.
because we're just at capacity. So there's clearly, it's not just hype, and there's a lot of interest, right?
For sure.
But I think a lot of what I'm interested here is a lot more just blocking and tackling around technology.
Sure.
We've been at the firm I work at, we've really been exploring our thesis for how we're going to use generative AI, and I think we have a really good path forward. So I'm more interested in just letting that play out, and the people I'm meeting with here, I'm looking for what we might be doing 18, 24 months down
Sure.
the road.
Sure. I think that's right. You have to have a process and a plan. You can't just willy-nilly adopt something new and hopefully it works out, right? There's the education of your attorneys and then support staff, and there's, the training that goes into it. And the testing, right? All the things you would use for other technology that people have implemented in the past, you still have to use with AI. That doesn't change.
Right.
Do you think that's true?
Yeah. Well, so, it's funny. We have one of our testers in one of our pilot groups for a certain tool came back and said, man, this is horrible. Like, I don't see the benefit here. And we're like, my gosh, I'm so sorry having that experience. Can you share with us the prompts and some of the use cases you've been using it for? And the person's prompts were just super rudimentary. I mean, by the way, I strongly believe prompt engineering is dead. Okay, so
Right.
that's maybe a controversial topic, but that whole thing from 12 months ago where you had to find these specific ways of phrasing things to get an AI model to do what you want to do, I think is gone. But context engineering, I think, is king.
Right.
And you have to provide enough context in your prompt to give the AI a fighting chance to know how to provide the best results. And this person's context was nil. I mean, it was literally prompts that were 8 words long. So, but that was helpful because we got to kind of educate this person to face challenges that he was experiencing by improving the outcomes with some simple tweaks. And it was oh yeah, I didn't realize that was how you're supposed to use it. So, a lot of it just is context of understanding how to use a tool effectively.
Right. I think that's where it's people that are really concerned about the hallucination, kind of almost like frenetic concern.
Right.
Kind of lose the fact that you still have to you have to check your work. You have to check validate.
You do.
And having experience and familiarity with creating prompts and providing context is basically akin to knowing how to write a brief or other validations you would do with any other software tool or task.
Yeah, that's true, but it's also just, honestly, when people stop using the thought process of how to delegate properly. So if you had a great intern, oh man, we have a great set of interns this summer and we really like working with them, you would learn how to delegate to those interns. You would provide them enough context to do their work. They'd come back, maybe have some questions for you because they're still new at all this. And oftentimes provide you great work product as a result. But you still have to check everything.
Sure.
And I find that's, just because my intern now basically works within 90 seconds and I get an amazing output, it's still incumbent on me on checking its work and making sure it actually responded to the task at hand.
For sure. I always explain to partners and other senior attorneys that the AI really is for making their team, their best people better and empowering them to do more work.
Yeah.
And, will it impact contract attorneys? I definitely think so.
Sure.
In our space. But, to your point, it's still incumbent upon the attorneys and, the partners to understand what their team's doing.
Right.
So they have to have a better knowledge of what's happening and feel comfortable with it as well, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. We've seen one of the best areas is, I know you know this terminology, but not everyone may, was thinking like a lawyer, which they drill into in law school, right?
Sure.
There's a whole mindset around this, and in short, the whole way of thinking is honestly, you can learn anything. And you can use your, legal acumen and apply it to just whatever fact patterns before you. So don't worry about it if you don't quite understand how oil drilling works or how, some manufacturing actually happens in real life, because you can learn that on the fly and then apply your legal knowledge to that fact pattern. What generative AI is amazing for is using it as a tool to understanding those fact patterns better and understanding a new industry you haven't supported in the past. And so it doesn't have to always be about the actual output. It can also just be about you getting caught up to speed real quick on a new area of manufacturing that a client is working on. If you don't know anything about injection molding, like you can learn real quick and it gets you smart. So it's a useful tool in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. It's not just finding, locating the patterns that are and the complexity of them, but finding patterns you didn't understand.
Right.
Right. So it's a tool that has other benefits, and I think having seen other technology over the last 20 years, like voice to text searching or text to voice searching, image identification, TAR and CAL, those are like in ways identification tools and pattern finding tools.
Right.
Where Gen AI, you're creating substantive content.
Right.
Right. Just like you would check someone's work, you have to check someone's work here.
Yes.
Right.
But also, what technology have we ever been able to use in the past, in all of history, where you can say, what questions didn't I ask you that I should have asked you?
Right.
Of the tool.
Yeah.
And
what makes
it
different.
comes back.
That's what makes it different. And that's what makes, I think, some people think, wow, this is great. And other people step back and say, wait a second, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what's your, besides the technology, 12, 18 months from now, is there anything else that, you're hoping to see over the next couple days?
I mean, look, it might sound boring, but cybersecurity is honestly like on the top of my mind constantly.
Sure, that's your job.
Right? Yeah, and you may know that the FBI recently, basically sent an announcement out to all law firms saying, be cautious, be aware. There are threat actors that are specifically attacking you.
Right.
And everyone's been upping their game a lot. So, the move to the cloud brought a lot of benefits to many organizations. It also introduced some new risks, and we're constantly playing the cat and mouse game of mitigating those risks. So that's a whole discipline, and I'm always here to learn more about that because it's so critically important. Because you can't do the rest of the stuff unless the cybersecurity stuff is locked in.
For sure.
And that's when something you'll never be done. There's always be a new
There's always something new.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
I think that's what makes the legal technology field so interesting.
Yeah.
Is that you and I have been doing this for, we can say decades, right?
Yeah.
And that be generous. But there's always something new that you have to apply your skill set and your desire to learn the new problem to solve. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or avoid.
And what I do love about the International Legal Technology Association and other groups like it, other groups that we've been a part of, whenever you bring a group of like-minded people who are trying to solve the same problem together, especially who are interested, you do get to share all these ideas. And I learned so much from all of my colleagues and from different firms. So,
Sure.
sometimes at a conference, you learn a lot at a session, or you might learn a lot from a vendor booth. But oftentimes it's in the hallways as you pass by someone. You get even 2-minute conversations that end up sticking with you for months. And I think just that collaboration is so critical.
For sure. Well, Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And we'll see you soon. And I know you're going to be in Chicago in a couple of months at RailFest, so we'll see you then.
Sounds great. Brian, thanks so much.
Thank you.